Hello everyone, and welcome to our webinar, WWDC 2024, Discover What's Next for Apple in the Enterprise. Thanks for joining us. As everyone is still getting signed in, we'll go over just a few housekeeping items. Please think of questions throughout the webinar and direct them to the Q&A section. We'll be answering those throughout, and I'll also open it up at the end as well. As a reminder, this webinar will be recorded, and we'll share the recording with you shortly after the webinar is finished. If we don't get to all of your questions, we'll follow up with you afterwards. Reaching out to info@jamf.com will also get you in contact with someone at Jamf quickly. With that, let's get started. Welcome to our webinar about Apple's Worldwide Developer Conference and what's next for Apple in the enterprise. My name is Sean, and I'll be your host. Let's take a look at the agenda. First, we'll provide a brief recap of WWDC and talk about the major platform announcements. Then we'll discuss what's new in device management. And finally, we'll provide some key next steps for IT and security admins. With that, let's get started. As they are wont to do, Apple made some big announcements. Let's take a moment and review them. What we're about to discuss is by no means exhaustive of what Apple introduced, but to review the biggest highlights. In the biggest highlight of the week, Apple formally introduced Apple Intelligence. Designed with privacy in mind, Apple Intelligence offers users a personalized intelligence system integrated into iOS, iPadOS, and the macOS experience that leverages general models to create text and images, all while taking actions based on deep understanding of your unique context. And for developers, with new app intents, APIs, and frameworks, they can integrate system-level features like Siri, writing tools, and Image Playground into their apps. Let's take a moment to look at writing tools and Image Playground. Starting with writing tools. It can proofread text, rewrite to match the tone and wording users want, and summarize selected text. You can also integrate writing tools with ChatGPT to the user's discretion. This means that users control when ChatGPT is used, and they will be asked before any information is shared. Apple Intelligence will summarize content in the Mail app or of audio recordings and transcriptions. It can group mail messages by senders and prioritize the most important emails, like those that are time sensitive. And Reduce Interruptions is a new focus feature that understands the content of notification and only shows you the ones that need immediate action. Generating images also became much easier. The Image Playground creates images in seconds right in a user's app. And the Image Playground app allows users to experiment with different concepts or styles. Users can generate original Genmojis right in the keyboard. The Image Wand takes a rough sketch and makes it more visually compelling. And users can generate custom movies from photos and videos, search for photos by describing what they're looking for, and clean up photos to see only what they want to see. Siri is also at the start of a new era with Apple Intelligence. Siri will have more awareness of personal context, and its deep knowledge of Apple's products and features offers users a better way to help. It will have a new design which wraps around the screen, seen in the image on the screen here. Its on-screen awareness allows Siri to take actions from what is on screen. It has richer language understanding, so communicating with Siri is more natural. You can even type queries to Siri if you are unable to do so or do not want to speak. And you can use custom shortcuts, called vocal shortcuts, to invoke Siri with any name you want. And just like writing tools, you can integrate Siri with ChatGPT. And, once again, users control when ChatGPT is used, and users will be asked before any information is shared. Let's chat briefly about private cloud compute. It handles more complex requests while protecting your privacy. Apple explains that while Apple Intelligence is aware of your personal information, your data is never stored on Apple servers. Only parts of your request that require large language model processing are sent to the cloud, and the Apple Silicon-based server code is available for independent auditing and verification. And private cloud compute is only used for user requests. Let's now move on to some platform updates, starting with Apple Vision Pro. You can customize how you use Apple Vision Pro, including connecting your Magic Mouse or other third-party Bluetooth mouse. You can customize the home view to your specifications, and you can navigate with new hand gestures. With Mac Virtual Display, Vision Pro users can extend their Mac to Vision Pro and will have the same experience of two 4K Mac displays side by side. Photos gets enhancement by bringing spatial photos to life, creating spatial photos from 2D images, and shared plane to the Photos app. And the last thing we want to call out for Apple Vision Pro here are the new suite of APIs and frameworks that will help developers create immersive apps. There are volumetric and enterprise APIs, Tabletop Kit and Reality Kit that will springboard developers into creating the most exciting spatial experiences for their users. As organizations are still learning and testing how to incorporate Apple Vision Pro into their workflow, these new APIs will be helpful for any in-house or App Store apps they may want to use. Next, let's take some of the major announcements for the next version of macOS called macOS Sequoia. Part of Continuity, a series of Apple features that allows users to work from one device to another without a drop in productivity, comes the ability to see and control your iPhone remotely using a Mac. Safari has some exciting new updates, including highlights, which detects relevant page information and highlights that info as you browse. A redesigned reader presents a high-level summary of an article. And Video Viewer puts videos front and center while giving users full access to system playback controls. With the Passwords app, also available on iPhone, iPad, and Apple Vision Pro, Apple introduced a dedicated Passwords app that provides a centralized and secure location for managing passwords across your Apple ecosystem. Next, let's talk about iOS and iPadOS 18, where customization and user interaction were at the forefront. Users can customize the home screen, including placing apps and widgets where they want them, creating dark look for app icons and widgets, and tinting app icons to match their wallpaper. The Control Center has new groups of controls, the ability to add controls for your most used or favorite apps, and customize the size and how controls are presented. Messages also has a lot of new capabilities, including the ability to bold, italicize, underline, and strike through text, tap back with any emoji, schedule messages, and use rich communication services for those without iMessage to present better media playback. We mentioned the Password app on the macOS Sequoia page, but iOS and iPadOS 18 also allow users to hide or lock apps. We'll touch on this more later in the presentation during the device management section. To continue with iOS and iPadOS 18, the Notes app has major enhancements regarding user interaction. Smart Scripted Notes uses on-device machine learning models to polish a person's handwriting from notes. Calculator finally comes to iPad, but rather than just being a bigger screen, it brings additional tools that bring new ways to interact. Math Notes provides users the ability to write out math problems, making them easier to solve while providing a visual understanding of the process. And Calculator has both basic and scientific calculators available. There are privacy and security updates like having more control and visibility over sharing contacts with apps, a better way to manage how you share information with apps, and Bluetooth pairing is more private. To round out our update on iOS and iPadOS 18, there are updates to the Photos app, including a better way to organize your most important images, viewing collections of your favorite albums, or viewing a carousel of your most impressive photos. For the last portion of this section, let's focus on watchOS 11. There are updates to Activity, giving an in-depth data of workouts and the ability to personalize activity rings based on the weekday. A new Vitals app highlights health metrics, and pregnant users can even track gestation age and heart rate. And there are better ways to stay connected with intelligent widgets, live activities, and a translation app. For the translation app, you can download a language right to your Apple Watch, meaning you do not have to have your iPhone with you to be able to translate. Now let's chat about what's new in device management. A quick, important note. What we are about to discuss is by no means a representative of Jamf's roadmap. Our goal is to highlight the major announcements Apple made during WWDC 24 and how they can impact the enterprise. And even though we have captured these ideas internally, we'd love to hear your feedback on how specifically these items Apple announced will help you in your workflows. To begin, let's talk about Apple School Manager and Apple Business Manager, which works in conjunction with MDM to deploy devices, view inventory, purchase apps and volume, and manage user accounts. Automated device enrollment, which works with ABM and ASM and your MDM and helps ship devices directly to users, has new updates including being extended to Apple Vision Pro 2.0, which previously only supported account-driven user enrollment workflows. This means that IT admins will be able to enroll Apple Vision Pro into MDM with the Setup Assistant, just like other Apple devices today. Automated device enrollment for macOS Sequoia will now support WebAuthn for web authentication. This means that by using a public key cryptography, enrollment customization will be more simplified and secure. There are updated setup assistant keys, meaning iOS welcome key also applies to macOS. And Apple Vision Pro and Apple Watch can be added to and will show up on your Apple Business or School Manager portal. This means organizations can better track and inventory these devices when they purchase them and have control over activation lock, which we'll explore in more depth in a few slides. Let's take a look at Managed Apple Accounts, currently known as Managed Apple IDs. There is more than a name change to this important tool. IT admins can limit new Apple account created on their domain to only be Managed Apple Accounts. This means that if you're opting into this, all Apple accounts created with your domain are Managed Apple Accounts, so you're not playing catch up on Managed Apple Accounts you already have, or if you've been reluctant to create new Managed Apple Accounts. Organizations that want to ensure they can manage and own all Apple accounts using their domain, IT admins will now be able to capture Apple accounts that use their organization's domain without needing to connect to an identity provider. This means that there is a new process to reclaim them within 30 days after federation, and better yet, if you're not ready to federate, you can limit personal Apple accounts going on your domain, and users will have the option to convert their existing account into a Managed Apple account. Next, let's take a look at some updates to software updates. Managed software updates utilizes the Declarative Device Management Protocol, and it can provide a simplified, unified, and singular top-level source of truth for software updates. And with this update, Apple is introducing a new software update settings configuration, which will replace all legacy MDM software update management commands, profiles, and restrictions. The declaration can be used on supervised devices with iOS and iPadOS 18 or macOS 15 or later to manage all aspects of software updates, and to change notification behavior so notifications only show 1 hour before the update is enforced. This update pairs nicely with existing declarations for scheduling software updates, which has allowed you to set a version and time of enforcement, but now gives more flexibility and granularity to the user experience, as well as a consolidated admin experience. Apple announced enhancements to Safari management, including being able to manage Safari extensions on iOS, iPadOS, and macOS. Just like software updates, this also uses the Declarative Device Management Protocol. What does this mean? It means that IT admins can define which extensions are allowed and allows IT admins to control whether the extension is always on or always off. This update provides IT admins with more options to choose what is needed for their fleet and the ability to configure extension website access by domain or subdomain. Safari also provides users with the visual cue for which extensions are managed. And all this works with Safari private browsing. Let's move on to Activation Lock. Activation Lock ensures that only those authorized to lock a compatible computer or mobile device can do so, even if the device has been wiped. But if Activation Lock is left on unintentionally, that device cannot be re-provisioned. In AXM, Activation Lock can now be turned off for organizationally owned devices. Admins can select the device, open the menu, and select Turn Off Activation Lock. It's available for iPhone, iPad, Mac, Apple Watch, and Apple Vision Pro, and this can happen as long as the devices are in your organization. This is great if your organization is newer to MDM and you did on-device enrollment of a Mac before MDM can manage it. What does this mean? It means you might have existing devices that already have Activation Lock enabled, but now you have consistent control over the feature. Now it's time to chat about Apple Vision Pro. The image you see on the right is Apple Vision Pro being enrolled via account-driven user enrollment. But as we mentioned earlier, Apple Vision Pro will support automated device enrollment for organizationally owned devices. But more than that, Vision OS 2.0 now supports most MDM configurations, commands, and payloads, including passcode policy, domains, web content filter payloads, device configured, account modification, and more. And what this means is that organizations can now manage Apple Vision Pro as easy as an iPhone or iPad. For Mac, there are a bunch of new exciting updates. There's a new disk configuration, which will allow admins to choose whether external or network storage is allowed or even disallowed entirely. The capability was previously removed from the MDM spec. macOS 11 deprecated the old restriction keys, but these capabilities are coming back to the spec. The new Platform Single Sign-On, or PSSO, capabilities means admins can leverage IDP in more places than ever. These new capabilities mean configuration profiles can require auth policies against PSSO during FileVault on compatible computers at login window or the lock screen. So, if you are already using a PSSO solution, additional validation points are available to configure. What this means is that you will have more control on how much you want to rely on your IDP at specific identity events. For background task management, launch deconfiguration files can now be installed using the background task services configuration, providing admins an easy way to create and control background tasks. For admins, this means that anything installed using this method is unable to be modified by the user on the computer. Let's take a look at some updates for iOS and iPadOS. eSIM preservation when erasing a device. This prevents an eSIM from being removed when a device is erased locally by the user, and it allows eSIM outgoing transfer controls whether eSIM can be transferred to a newly set up device. One of the coolest features coming to iOS and iPadOS is locking or hiding an app. Admins can manage a user's ability to these controls in two ways: for organizationally owned device enrollments or personally owned user enrollment devices. For organizationally owned devices, orgs can restrict locking or hiding all apps, or any hidden apps are still visible to MDM. And for personally owned devices, also known as BYOD, organizations can restrict locking or hiding an app on a per app basis for only managed apps. These are the apps that organizations deploy to a personal device used for work. Organizations still have no visibility or control over what users do with their personal apps, now including locking or hiding those applications. Hidden managed apps, and I want to emphasize the managed portion, are still visible to MDM. In-house app installation is about sideloaded apps that are not deployed via MDM. With this update, Apple is looking to increase an organization's overall security posture by requiring a restart in addition to trusting the identity in settings when any proprietary in-house apps are installed. And that's it for a section on the biggest updates coming to device management later this year. Now let's take a quick look at some key steps for IT in security admins. First step, test, test, test. Beta versions are currently available for organizations to test the newest Apple operating systems. But remember, you should never use beta versions in production environments. But by testing these beta versions, you can better determine what features you want to use. We highly encourage admins to participate in Appleseed for IT, which provides IT admins an opportunity to evaluate beta software in their unique work environments and prepare test plans for their devices and ecosystem. Appleseed for IT is free, and you can sign up at beta.apple.com. On top of Appleseed for IT, we also encourage organizations to provide feedback to Apple, who want to hear from organizations who are testing these newest features. When organizations provide direct feedback, it gives more volume and strength to that feedback, so we encourage all customers to get in touch with Apple about anything you are testing. Review security policies. Especially with the introduction of features like AppLock, reviewing your security policies ensures any new Apple capabilities align with compliance requirements unique to your organization and provide optimal protection of device security, user privacy, and company data. Assess the potential benefits and considerations of integrating Apple Intelligence and Enhanced Siri into your enterprise environment. You should consider any privacy or security implications to proactively develop strategies to manage AI-driven interactions if the risks do not align with your security tolerance. And finally, explore how productivity-enhancing features can be utilized to improve workflows in remote and hybrid work settings, to establish programs that train employees on how to make the most of these new tools while ensuring security. That's it for this session. I hope you found it insightful and learned some useful information about what Apple announced at WWDC and how it can impact the enterprise. As a reminder, this recording will be emailed to you shortly, but if you still have any questions after it has ended, then please reach out to us at info@jamf.com. Thank you for tuning in, and we can jump into the Q&A by using the Q&A panel in your webinar toolbar. I have my colleagues Jake and James here on the presentation who are going to help answer any of your questions. Thank you.